Good morning, everyone. This is Joy from Strong Hearted Native Women's Coalition. I have Keli and Raquel here with me to talk about steaming again. This is our last conference for this 2022 Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So with that, this is being recorded. It will be placed on YouTube when we are done. I didn't place Tuesday's call on YouTube just because we had a little bit of technical difficulties. So since this one is going so smooth, this will be the end all be all. So I'm going to turn it over to Keli and Raquel and let them introduce themselves, and we will go from there. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, for coming with an open heart and open ears to be part of this amazing conference that has been taking place. I'm Raquel Coaxit Lali, and I am on Tongva land at this moment in time, and I am the daughter of Annabelle Lemus, the daughter of Olinda Lemus, the daughter of Isaura Lemus, the daughter of Sebastiana Lemus, the daughter of Maria Elena Lemus, the daughter of Ana Pernet. I guess all my abuelas wanted to be here today. And Keli, do you just want to introduce yourself and say hi?
Guys, my name is Keli Garza. I'm the owner of Steamy Chick and the descendant of African.
Oh, you cut out a bit, love.
What is it?
Yeah, there, I can hear you now, but can you introduce yourself again? You cut out for a second.
Keli Garza. I'm descended from a long line of African and European ancestors, and happy to be here. I'm currently on Hawaiian King.
Thank you. And just want to give, before going in, just give lots of gratitude for the strong-hearted women and your collective, for the land that you are on, for the Kumai and the Lucino tribes and nations that exist down in that area, in SoCal. And really just want to thank everybody's ancestors and guides that brought them here to this moment, to hopefully learn and expand into this knowledge. And I feel really important in starting in that way, because the reality of what steaming is, for your health, for your well-being, has its foundational roots and indigenous technology and indigenous practices across the world, which is amazing. And so it's so special to see how this practice has grown. Give gratitude to Keli for how she's grown and really innovated in this practice for what we're all moving through in this time frame in the earth right now. Yeah, so that's awesome. And then, in starting this conversation, really looking at how this is important and why this is important for tending to our bodies in this way, especially if you're a woman, if you have a uterus and you're a uterine carrier. We're really looking at, and honestly, if you have any type of genitalia, this is important for you and your body. Because even those with penises, even masculine bodies, face sexual assault and also can benefit from steaming in this way. So, with that, we're in this focus where we are really focusing on the uterus, but really when we're looking at the genitalia in general, we're looking at our center of creation. And so regardless of what we choose to create, the uterus, the genitals are our center of creation. Whether that's a meal, whether that's a human life, like human life comes from our genitals. Human life comes from the blood inside of the uterus. That is the life force. That is life force blood that makes another human being. So it is an essential, vital sign for the health and well-being of anybody with especially with a uterus and who's carrying a uterus, a woman. Also acknowledging that some of our two-spirit relatives don't always identify as women or men in general, and so this can still apply for any of our two-spirit relatives as well. So the other aspect of the uterus and the importance of the uterus in this framework, and the genitals, is one, our connection to pleasure. When we look at our labia, we look at our clitoris, especially for if you have that type of anatomy. Those are types of anatomy that that for the most part are their only biological function is pleasure and hormone regulation because of the activation that can occur when they're stimulated. And so when we interject violence into that area, then we have this disconnection from our ability to create, to be co-creators in this life, and to experience pleasure and to stand in our power, right? Because creation is power. And so we get cut off from that. So steaming is a practice of allowing ourselves to start remembering the truth of who we are, remembering the truth of our ability to create, remembering the truth of our connection to our power, and that we've come to experience pleasure and be co-collaborators on this earth, and our capacity to and our connection to the earth, I'll say. Anyone who has a uterus and goes through moon cycles, who's a woman and goes through those moon cycles, or if you have at one point, you may not be bleeding anymore. You may be you may have a wise womb now, is what I like to call it. Any of our folks who have going through menopause, but those cycles are a reminder that we are not separate from the earth, that we are not separate from the cycles of life. And I hold the very strong opinion that if you have a uterus, that it's your responsibility to come into that cyclical nature of your being and hold that knowledge for everyone, in your community, in yourself. Like, that's how we teach, that's how we represent the earth. The earth goes through cycles. The earth goes through summer, fall, spring, winter, all these seasons. The moon goes through cycles. We know this. And that's why, again, I say that I'm blessed and honored to be sharing in this moment as the very young, old grandmother spirit that lives within me. But this is old knowledge. This is old technology. This is truth of indigenous practices that we have carried and shared among each other across the globe for centuries before colonization took place and began to separate us from this information. So we are microcosms of the earth. So when we're looking at, again, sexual violence and sexual transgressions, we're also looking at how we're mirroring that violence that is happening on the earth. So, and we all, have the awareness, like healing seven generations back, 7 generations forward. Healing starts from within. We hear these things within our community. So it's like, how do we, and we hear that, like, okay, if we heal, then the earth heals. Well, how does that actually happen, right? That happens from us starting to take space to remember these practices, to implement these practices. Steaming is one of them. There are several others that exist, and start to put the boundaries up, to say, hey, this is how I choose to treat myself and respect myself in this life, and as a mirror for the earth, that just starts to to bleed out into the larger population. I think it's very similar to like I think it's the 100 monkeys practice or something, that there's a certain amount of, once a certain animal, particularly like a primate, learned how to use a tool, a certain percentage of the population of animals knew how to use that tool, then everyone in that population knew how to use the tool, which is amazing. So I think Kelly is low key on that. Like, let's get everybody, let's get a steam box in every corner, in every household. Let's get a steam practitioner in every single neighborhood, and let's get this so that the balance of our population just knows and remembers again. Yeah, and then I would say another aspect of this that I just want to acknowledge and mirror is that the technology of steaming is not much different, really isn't different than the technology of temescals and anipis. And this was often, kind of how we would steam. If you use steaming or temescales and anipis in your traditions. Um, or smokehouses, even using like smudging, like those are steams and ways of using steam and smoke to clear and cleanse the body, right? And so in the temescal, you have the body, the sacred fire. We have the burner. In a steam, you have the fire, the stove, you have the burner. You have the earth, the womb, the willow, or the cave that you're going into to steam, or the smokehouse, right? And in steaming, you have the pot that you're using and the herbs. Those are typically earth element that you're using. And then we both have water and we both have vapor. It's the vapor that comes. It's the vapor that we breathe in during a temescal. It's the vapor that gets absorbed through the genitals to support that healing and that remembering to happen. So that is definitely why we're looking at like the importance of the remembering process with steaming, and here to just reconnect everybody as much as we can to this simple yet powerful tool to support your life. Um, yeah, I think that's it so far. Am I forgetting anything, Kelly? Is
Did you
anything
talk
being
about what the uterus represents?
Yes, yeah. The uterus as a source of creation, um, and a bowl. And the uterus is also a portal, right? We have to remember that the uterus is a portal in bringing, one, spirits and babies through. So as a portal, I've also had teachings where the uterus is a school, and so in that, it is like an infinite library of information that can be stored. We know at this point, science is catching up to what indigenous people have known all along. And so science is now like, cellular memory is real, and epigenetics is like a whole thing in our day and age now. So when we look at like how this memory is stored in our body, we know that as because we're all technically matriarchal in our creation, because as your being was in your grandmother's being, and your grandmother's being was in her grandmother's being, and back and back and back and back and back until the first grandmothers that ever existed and the first mothers, right? And so that's how also healing wants to come. What wants to be said is that that's how we're also healing backwards and forwards in time. is because with the steaming, you're accessing and you're releasing those imprints that get stored in the library of your uterus, in the university of your uterus, and gets shifted in get physically manifested in different ways, which is what Keli is going to talk to you about in more detail, some of how the actual physical manifestations of different misalignments or the impacts of sexual assault can appear in the body. And that's all of those physical manifestations are imprints of different things. And sometimes those are generational. Sometimes we come in and being like, you know, I have this thing that I'm working through that doesn't feel like it's mine, you know? And that's maybe it's my mother's experience or your grandmother's experience, because your womb still holds all those imprints in the body. So as we, you know, come into steaming, we're not only helping our physical body come back into alignment and our hormonal body come back into our alignment, we're supporting our ancestral, astral, energetic bodies to come into alignment and clear that, you know, clean out that university library, clean out those cobwebs, and create that forward intergenerational healing that so many of our indigenous practices and technologies are constantly teaching us about over and over again. Yeah.
Thank you, Raquel. One thing, how's the sound, by the way, you guys? Yeah, good.
Much. Mhm.
One thing Raquel didn't share, she's a midwife and she brings through the babies. She catches babies, and she's also an anatomy instructor. And so I wanted to have her start off the talk, because the way that she understands our anatomy and the womb, you know, she understands it on such a different level, on such a spiritual level, on an energetic level, right? And so when we're steaming, right? I don't know, something happens, right? When you're steaming and when you're opening up, you know, the center of all creation, right? When you're accessing that womb. And so and then the, you know, the topic of this talk, we'll get into something a little bit heavier when we're talking about sexual assault and trauma. You know, we're thinking about Raquel and I were thinking and talking about the significance of the womb and the genitalia and what that means when there has been violence, right? And so so what I'm going to focus on is how we recuperate from trauma, specifically tending to our root, okay? And when I'm saying root, I mean the genitalia and the womb. And I'm going to talk about 2 tools for doing this, which is pelvic steaming or vaginal steaming, as you may have heard it, as well as actually just using our menstrual cycle and observing our period every month as a time to rest and nourish ourselves. Okay, so so I'll just start a little bit. I learned about steaming in LA because things are, you know, things are like healing is trendy there. You know, you always hear about everything first in LA. So the first time I heard about kombucha was in LA, you know. When I go to LA, all my friends are talking about astrology. You know, I always hear it first in LA. Okay. So I heard that steaming was a thing and that you could do it if you had menstrual cycle complications or pain. And I don't have any pain. So I was just like, you know, these LA girls always doing something. and so and so I never thought about it again until like within the next year I had a missing period. And I had a missing period because I had gone into shock because I found my boyfriend cheating on me, and it sent my body into shock, you know. And so my period went missing, and my period was missing, which was fine. You know, my period goes missing sometimes, and I don't care because I don't, you know, I don't care about my period. Like it's like, okay, cool, one less thing to worry about, right? Yeah, but my mind was going crazy, and I just wanted to kill him every day. Every day I'd be like up wanting to kill, you know, and talk myself down, pray myself down every day, you know. finally I realized, I was like, my hormones are out of balance. I was like, that's my problem. My hormones are out of balance. I'm having a hard time being myself, feeling like myself, right? And so I was like, oh shoot, I guess my period is related to my hormones. And so it's, of course I have an imbalance that's causing, this problem now for my mind and for my, and for my emotions. So I was like, I guess I need to balance out my hormones. So I guess I need to bring back my period. So then I was thinking about this at night, and I went to I said, I was about to go to sleep, and I said, okay, I said, well, how the heck do I get my period to come back? And I went to sleep with that question, to the universe. And at this time, actually, I was living in Escondido, and so I went to sleep with that, and I woke up. I tell you like this, I woke up vaginal steam. I was like, I gotta try that. And so I was like, how did these girls? And Raquel was at that first talk where I learned about vaginal steaming. I learned about it from a Guatemalan healer named Marcia Lopez. So I was like, what did she say? And so I like got a bowl, and I was trying to squat, and I was like, this is, my knees can only squat for so long. And I was just very uncomfortable. So I was like, I gotta find a place to do this. And I started searching and searching and searching, and I found out you can do it at a Korean spa. A Korean spa, you can do steaming. And I was like, that's weird. I thought it was Guatemalan. So I went to a Korean spa, and I was like, hey, excuse me, you go into a spa, you ask for your nails or whatever you're asking for, so the receptionist is there now, but we're just dealing with very low, English as a second language, very, very little communication. And I wanted vaginal steam, right? So I'm like, vaginal steam? She's like, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't speak English. So she calls the spa owner. I gotta wait like 10 minutes, and then another lady comes, the spa owner comes, and she's like, what's up? What do you need? And I'm like, it's nowhere on the menu. I'm like, where on the menu can I just point to this, And so she was like, I explained it to her, and she's like, oh yeah, we do that. We do that. She's like, American women don't usually do that. She's like, weird. So they're like, go sit over there. We're gonna set it up for you. They were like, go hang out in the clay sauna, in the red clay sauna, and we'll call you when it's ready. And so all of a sudden I smell all of these herbs, and they were preparing the steams, set up for me. And then they called me over, and they sat me down right next to the entrance where the receptionist was, where people were coming and going. And I was like, no, no, no. I was like, this isn't where I want to do this. But they gave me this big old like plastic, cloak that looked like a trash bag to wear. And they sat me right there, right next to the entrance. And I'm like, but I'm steaming my vagina, like, and so I sat down. It was a little hot, it was a little hot, but I could handle it. They turned it down for me. And I sat there, and I was so embarrassed. I was so shamed, I'm just like a real shame type person. I was so shamed, and I'm just blushing the whole time. And then they were like talking to me. Now, mind you, I didn't want them talking to me at the time, but I learned some key things, which is that Korean women steam at least once a month after their period is over. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I had heard you could just steam if you had problems. And they were like, and that's why we are so like, that's why we don't have fertility issues. That helps us prevent cancer. They were telling me all this stuff. I was just like, wow, okay, okay, fine, as I'm sitting there getting through it. And so I did my steam session, and I drove home. And so I went up to LA to the Korean sauna, and then I drove back down to Escondido. And by the time I got home, I think within an hour, my period started just like that. And one of the things about it was fresh. It smelled different. It looked different. It was healthy. Like I could just tell this was a really healthy period. And I was like, wow, those, Korean women, like, they weren't wrong. Steaming like really helps your period. Before I felt like it had been kind of, stagnant, like brownish. And this was just like a fresh, good color. And so I I felt better after my period came. I felt better. And so I decided to do this every month. I was like, okay, cool. So when my period was over, I was like, so that's what the Korean women said, is to do it when your period's over. But I didn't want to go back there. So I just I MacGyvered a chair. I was like, I took off the seat of the chair, I put on a toilet seat, and I put a pot underneath the chair, so I put a pot under the chair. And then I just used honestly, I just used the herbs that I collect while walking, while hiking, and I was using some white sage, and I was like, this is how I'm gonna do it at home, so I have privacy. And so I started that practice, and I never told anybody about it. I tried to tell somebody once. I was like, yeah, because I, have been doing the steam thing. And they were like, you're doing what? Where is the steam going? And I was like, no, nothing. Never mind. Like, never mind. you know, don't talk about it. Um, and so it was at that time, and I didn't realize the connection, at that time that I was able to heal from some trauma or some physiological effects of some trauma that I had experienced before. So, so many of us here, unfortunately, it happens to the best of us, have been raped or gone through some other trauma. And so I had when I was 20. Now, mind you, I'm like 30 or 31 at the time. 10 years passed. As far as I'm concerned, I'm completely, healed from or past whatever happened. It wasn't still impacting me in, as far as I was concerned, right? But I did have pain during sex. That was a problem for me. That was something that I had never, gotten past. That, went back to that experience, right? And I had talked to therapists about it, and I had talked to doctors about it, and what they told me, doctors just said, have more sex more frequently, and then eventually that will go away. And then my therapist was like, well, you may never be able to experience pleasure with sex. So that was what I was given, those two, and so far neither one of them was working. Well, once I steamed, actually it was at that time that I stopped having that that I was able to enjoy sex. I wasn't having that pain anymore. And so um, fast forward, I did start to tell, my friends about steaming, especially after I used it postpartum. And when I was pregnant, I learned that in the African tradition, steaming is used specifically in Ghana for postpartum healing, and that you're supposed to steam for 30 days postpartum. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm African, I'm going to do this, right? I'm an African descendant, I'm going to do my steaming. I already know about steaming. Now, mind you, I thought it was like Korean and Guatemalan, like they're doing it in Africa, right? So you see the trend of what's going on, right? And so I set up and oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. Um, I set
Your
up to
post
do huh?
your postpartum steam experience.
Yeah. So I set up to do my postpartum steaming, and but how is this related to trauma? I'd finally gotten to learning steaming from my tradition, so that was the good part. But well, anyhow, so I did. Oh yes, that I was sharing it. So I did once I did my postpartum steaming, I was like, oh my gosh, other mothers need to know about this. They're complaining, and they have all these problems postpartum. And so I just, as I was talking to my now mom friends, it was like, dude, why don't you try steaming for that? Like that might help. And so that's when I started sharing my chair around. I would go take it. If somebody gave birth, I would take my chair to them, with, my little baby, and I would set up a steam session for them. So I started helping and facilitating it for my community. And it wasn't too long after that, someone said, well, I want to do this, but can you just make me one of those chairs? Here's $100. The next week, 3 of her friends are like, I heard you have those chairs, and we heard how it helped her. Here's $100. So people started buying them from me. And then they were like, can you make me some herbs too? How much do you need for herbs? Okay, here's, it's just people were just giving me money to make them these supplies. That's how my company started. I never woke up and was like, I want to sell vaginal steam supplies and teach everybody about vaginal steaming. That was never, in my projection for what I would end up doing. But currently I am. That's all I do. Currently, that's all I do. So anyhow, so people started, and it was because of the need. And once once somebody steamed, and then they would tell other people, then they came to me again. And so it was people were texting me from all over. My number was getting passed around. And so so that's how I started sharing about vaginal steaming. And as each person, would steam, they would ask, okay, so how often do I do it? And they would tell me the situation. And so pretty soon I ended up with somebody who had a missing period. And I was like, okay, how long has, I was like, it can help for that. It helped me for that. I said, how long has your period been missing? And she was like, it's been 11 months. She's like, since it's been missing. She's like, I was raped and it hasn't come back since. And I was like, okay, okay. I got my little sister, college girl, dealing with the same thing that I dealt with. And so I was like, okay, I was like, that's true. That is something that can cause periods to go missing, and we're going to bring your period back. So then that helped me to remember that is also what happened to me. My period went missing. And when your period goes missing, your hormones get out of balance. When your hormones are out of balance, it's hard to emotionally deal with life, right? So when I was thinking about she was going to a therapist, she was actually litigating, she had a case against the guy, her college was being supportive. There was all this, support that she was getting, and yet nobody was helping her with her period. Nobody was helping her with that physiological, impact that she had. And so I was really, reflecting back on that. And that's when I really started to notice, like, when it comes to, trauma, and when it comes to assaults and rapes and so forth, there's very little focus on physiologically how that affects the cycle. And if you don't affect this, if you don't correct the cycle, if we don't bring this girl's period back, how is she really going to be able to move on? If we don't make it so that she doesn't have pain during sex, a very common thing that happens after, assault, how are we going to make it so that she isn't re-triggered every time she has sex with a loving partner? I mean, it might be why my first marriage failed. You know what I mean? Like, it's problematic if you don't like sex, right? You know what I mean? Like, ultimately, you have to look at the physiological effects. Raquel's laugh. You guys, I like to laugh, not to cry. Okay, so I'm gonna be a little irreverent sometimes, but it's just because that's how we are. That's how we survive, right? That's how we survive. Like, it's all about, we gotta laugh, but it's real, it's real. Like, so fast forward to now, I've worked with thousands and thousands of people to steam and to learn how to use steam for their personal uses. And it turns out steam can be useful not just for bringing back missing periods and period pain and menstrual, your overall menstrual health. It turns out it's used for postpartum. It turns out it's used for if there's gynecological concerns like fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS. It's used for all kinds of things. And actually, it's also used for recovering from trauma or as a direct response when there is like an assault that has happened. So there's two places that I learned about this. One is in Haiti, and then the other one is in Guatemala. That when girls are raped or women are raped, one of the first things that happens is that they will do a steam session for them. They'll clean them up. You know what I mean? Like, give them that care to the root. We'll go ahead and tend to that root and go ahead and provide a it's like that hot shower. I do remember that hot shower afterwards was like so relieving to finally have that shower and get that scent off of me. But the scent lingered. The scent lingered until probably after my next menstrual cycle. And mind you, my menstrual cycle went missing. Well, doing that steam changes that scent. It gets that scent out. And we also don't know if it's possible that it might help with pregnancy prevention as well. But I don't know, but I don't think it's bad to get all of the, any of the semen out, right? As fast as you can and going as high as you can. And that steam, is like that hot shower. Just imagine that same relief before your vagina, before your undercarriage, right? Like, it just feels so relaxing. Like, a lot of times people sit there, it's like, oh, what's this vaginal steam? These weird people and and you sit there and then they're like, oh. you just melt. I mean, it's not a bad thing, And people say, well, what about a hot bath? Yes, do a hot bath. So relaxing. But that doesn't go up your vagina. Like, it doesn't go up the canal, Whereas the steam does. It was able to go and reach up the vaginal canal and get to the bottom of the cervix also, which is where HPV and all kinds of other issues are, right? And you can even, so in Raquel's anatomy class, she teaches people to use a mirror and to go ahead and look. Well, I've used a mirror when steaming, and you can see a tunnel. it opens everything up. You can see a tunnel. Cysts, Bartholin cysts that people have are right there at the opening, in the vagina. There's all kinds of problems that can happen in the vagina, and that steam will carry and go right up and take those herbs to it. So so in Haiti, so I was talking to a girl, another girl I worked with later, and she had she was like one of those really sad situations where she had been kidnapped when she was a teenager and had been in captivity for a time period, and now she was out. She had gotten away and married and couldn't have any kids. Turns out she has really bad scar tissue from some of the things that occurred, really bad scar tissue in her vaginal canal and her cervix. So she can't get pregnant because nothing can even get through that scar tissue. So she started steaming, and the steaming helped to release that scar tissue. Like, it literally fell out. I was like, what? Your scar tissue is falling out? I was like, what does that look like? She's like, it looks like kind of like jerky. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess that's, like, but like, ultimately, like, that's, I don't know. I'm happy because it's coming out. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean, right? And so, I mean, I didn't know that was gonna happen, right? And so that's you're kind of walking with me on my journey of like, what? I didn't know steam could do that, right? And so to me, I'm like, oh, you hurt your elbow? We're gonna steam. Now I use steam for anything. Like, it's like I don't know. I don't know if you saw that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. The dad was using Windex on everything. That's me and steam. I'd be like, what? Like, your tooth hurts? Let's get the steam ready. Steam, like, we gotta steam, like, it's everything. It helps everything, okay? So this girl who was dealing with this scar tissue, she met a Haitian woman who works with survivors. Okay, so she's I think she might be herself a survivor, and she also works helping survivors get back into their life, jobs and whatever it is. And this girl was like, hey, she's like, I steamed and I'm having incredible results. Do you think that we should share this with some of the other women? And the Haitian woman was like, what do you mean? She's like, everybody here hasn't steamed yet? Like, that's the first thing that you're supposed to do. And so I was like, oh, interesting, and since I have confirmed that and met other Haitians that are like, yeah, of course you would steam, like, right after. So it was like, oh, that's when it kind of came together, and that's kind of why I'm here thinking about steaming specifically when it comes to physical assault. Of course you would use steaming immediately after, as soon as possible after, right? So having worked with, I worked with 773 people one-on-one with steaming, and all of them were woman identifying folks with uteruses. So that's where my experience comes from. So I'm going to be saying woman a lot. Now, of course, this is going to apply to anybody who has a uterus, who doesn't, who has another gender. But out of the women that I worked with, I used to screen for pain during sex, because it's like, hey, guess what? I found that there's a solution for that. There might be something that this might be able to help with that as well. And I used to screen for fertility issues and all kinds of things. What I do is I look at the menstrual cycle and I read the menstrual cycle to be able to determine how somebody's steaming. So if somebody has stagnant cycles with brownish blood, I use a lot of circulatory herbs. If somebody has a lot of, if somebody has pink blood, for example, that's a sign that they have deficiency or anemia, or they're tending that way. So then I use like a lot of blood tonics. So you see, I'm like matching the herbs for the menstrual cycle. And so what I found was people that had gone through sexual trauma and physical assault were showing it in certain ways. And I'm going to share with you guys some of the physiological effects that people are left with, and that even with all the support in the world, often doesn't get addressed. And honestly, that's why Joy brought us. Joy's like, this does make sense, helping people with their menstrual cycle. It does make sense bringing back their absent periods, and then not only that, it's not always about just helping other people. Ultimately, you use it for yourself. So Joy used it. Joy tried it herself, because the first time we actually sat in a circle and Raquel did a steam session for us. So we're steam sisters. Oh, and she didn't do it because she was contraindicated. She was on her cycle at the time, so she didn't do it. Um, but then she started using it in her own life. And so now she's used it. She doesn't feel, if anybody's like, I don't know, this sounds, again, once you try it and you melt into that chair, it's like, oof, why would I ever stop doing this? And so she was able to use it, and then also, recommend it. And she's been doing it that for a couple years. And so it's like, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought again. Oh yeah. So okay, so I'm gonna talk about how we can use it for, when specifically with sexual assault, but also remember it's just something for you to use, because when you've used it, then it's easy. It's easy to talk about. It's easy how to, explain it to others, because it is something that, mind you, you followed my journey of learning about it from different places in the world. I've heard of it, like I've now heard of steaming in over 70 different places all over the entire world. And what I'm realizing is that this is a universal practice. I found, this old Hawaiian, but I'm in the Hawaiian kingdom right now. I was looking at this old Hawaiian book with the herbs in it. Sure enough, one of the remedies she talks about using a banana leaf, to steam. And I'm not I'm not saying I'm a practitioner, a Hawaiian practitioner in the steaming, but I did find it in the old book. You know what I mean? And that's like kind of what is happening all over the world. And as I share with it, I tell people, well, why don't you ask? Why don't you ask? Ask your mom, ask your grandma. And specifically, I found the most common use for it is postpartum. So it's a lot of times it's the midwives, the old midwives, the traditional midwives who still have memory of it. I used to live down in Nicaragua, and I went to go visit recently, and I know the midwives in the village. So I was like, hey, you guys do this, and I've known them for a long time, but I didn't know about steaming before. They were like, yeah, of course we do that. I was like, what do you call it? They're like, just you know the herbs. You got to get the herbs to, you have to give them the herbs. They sit over the herbs. They didn't necessarily call it vaginal steam, but they do steaming, right? And so you may find the term for it, you may not find the term for it. It may be called, I actually, somebody did share with me and told me I can share this, that their great aunt, who's from one of the tribes up in the Dakotas, was saying that they used to do a mother steam, a mother steam is what they called it, a mother sweat. So it's similar. They described it. It was similar to the sweat lodge, but it was for the mothers. And then that was specifically, they would specifically all have a different little setup so that each person could sit over it for their womb. I was like, what? And again, I'm not sharing that as I'm not a native steam practitioner or a cultural practitioner. I'm just sharing as those hints, those hints to look for it, because we lost it. My African ancestors, I come from the line of people that were brought over and sold into slavery. It was there though. The grand midwives, the African American midwives, were using it anywhere that they could, anywhere that it didn't get lost. Like there's record of it being used the whole time, right? So, just the thing is to go back and look for it. It's always been here, Now you'll find it on Instagram as like a little social media fad. It's not a social media fad, this has always been here, and I do believe that that our ancestors want us to know about it again. I don't think that they like seeing these menstrual cycle problems. I don't think that they like seeing, the moms not healing up properly after giving birth. I don't think that they like this. If they were using it when assaults and rapes happened, I think they want us to use it again. And I think that's why, like I never tried to talk about steaming. And yet I've got people texting me from, very shortly, within a matter of months, they were texting me from all over the world asking me if I could ship them a chair, a MacGyvered little Jimmy rig chair with some herbs because they wanted to try it. The need is there. Okay. So that's the intro. Now let's get into let's get into the meat. Before I do, I'll just go ahead and give a pause if anybody wants to ask any questions right now.
Anybody have a question, comment? We're shy this morning, Kelly. They're still trying to get their Friday coffee in.
That's right. It is Friday.
But
Never
it's
mind,
a lot to
everybody.
take in. It's a lot to take in the first time Because like I said, I thought y'all were nuts, and I was really examining my life choices up to that point of when I sat at that conference room table, and so we'll give them some more time to come up with some questions.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, so what I noticed was there's a high correlation between having gone through trauma, sexual trauma in particular, and the possibility of scar tissue, the possibility of missing periods, the possibility of painful sex as a result, um, infections, okay? Painful periods, which then lead to fertility issues, and then heavy bleeding. Those are the things, the physiological impacts that a lot of times a rape or prior molestation or whatever is going on can cause, okay? Or bad relationships. Sometimes people are like, can't get these infections under control. I've had them chronic infections, and then I broke up with the dude, and guess what? They just magically went away. Well, right? Our body's telling us something. The body keeps the score, the body was telling you something, right? So first things first, I'll talk about pelvic steaming. So with the steaming, I do think that it should be used as a direct response. I think it should be part of, a rape kit or the protocol. Okay. Now, steaming can be done at home. And I think it should be one of those things that's like first aid, like, for example, if somebody's bleeding, we know you're kind of supposed to clean it and then like, put something over it. If it's, won't stop bleeding, you put pressure, right? Like we know first aid for that, right? So I think that it can be used in first aid in that same way where, anywhere you have a pot and some water, you can even just put a tiny bit of salt in there, or you can use a tea bag of whatever happens to be around, like chamomile tea bag, a mint tea bag. Raquel mentioned rosemary, from the spice cabinet can be used, just put a little bit in there without even, needing a steam practitioner, whatever you can, because those things are going to change the scent and it's going to change the energy immediately, in the vaginal canal for the genitalia. Okay, and it can be used for penises as well. It can be used for either anatomy. And in fact, I found out, we've been talking about vaginal steaming. I found out it's actually used, like in Korea, it's used for the men almost, I think, as much or even more for the women. Like it was known as the emperor's, like an emperor's medicinal treatment. They used to do it for the emperor, for the king. So it's not specifically only for women. So you do that steam as soon as possible. And and so again, you can grab a pot and then you put this, you can create like maybe a towel or a blanket on the ground, and you can put this right on the ground and do your steam session. You put that right there and stand over it. You're already steaming. Like you don't need anything special. And now if you want, you go down on your knees. So put your knees on either side of the pot. Then that way you're closer. And, kind of like a bath. You're like, I want it hotter. Like you're going to want to be down on your knees. So you're going to want to feel that steam a little bit closer. There are also steam saunas. And I don't know if you have yours, Raquel, that you can share. I'll show you guys a little stool that I have. So this is a stool that can be used for steaming. This one is from Morocco. They practice steaming there as well. One of the young doulas there is bringing it back. And she had those pretty ones made. There's also, you can take like a planter, a wooden planter from the store. If you turn it upside down and you drill a hole in it, you got a steam sauna. You can take a chair and you remove the seat and you put a toilet seat there, and you've got another way to do it. And I have like on Instagram, there's Raquel's. She's a midwife, so she's got the nice cushiony one to support the moms, after you give birth because you're sore. So there's equipment, but really you can always just do it and stand over the pot, with your legs on either side. Just go ahead and remember it's hot, so go ahead and wrap a towel around it or a blanket. to be able to protect, if you go down on your knees, to be able to protect your legs from the heat. Okay. It doesn't burn, and it shouldn't be too hot, just like a hot shower or just like a shower. You can put the temperature wherever you like it, but if it's scalding hot and it's hotter, that doesn't mean it's better. You just want to make it go ahead and make it comfortable. So it should be and can be used as a first response. But actually, somebody was on this last time. They asked the question. Make sure to go ahead and collect any specimens before doing the steaming, because it will pull everything out. So you want to go ahead and do that collection first, and then the steaming is what happens after, once the person is able to clean themselves. Okay, so pain during sex. It's pretty easy. It's kind of like a one-time thing. What you want to do is before penetration, before sex, as soon as possible before, do that steaming. So like within an hour of actually having that sex. Steam helps to bring warmth, circulation, and moisturization. And those are the things that are needed in order not to have pain during sex. The muscles relax, right? We know that hot water relaxes muscles. Well, that's important because what's often happening is a clamping that's happening, and then there's also a dryness that's happening. And so the steam brings that moisturization and it relaxes those muscles. And so it's almost like the same as people use lubricant. It's the same thing, right? Because you're creating like that moisturization, there's not that tension, upon entry. And when there is any tension, then you've got the muscles that freak out, and clamp up and continue to make it more painful. So the steaming is able to resolve all of that. And for all of the things, I mean, I don't know if it's 100%, but I've never recommended this and somebody try it and it not work. So it seems to be very effective at, making it so that people are able to have pain-free sex. But the trick is do it right before sex, like within an hour, and it can be sexy, come on, it can be sexy, so in this instance, oh my gosh, one of my friends, she wanted to do her steam, her first, when she did her first vaginal steam, her partner was really interested in it. He was like, oh, that's beautiful. And so he massaged her while she was doing it, and then he wrapped her up with a blanket, and she actually fell asleep after, because sleep is something sometimes people get sleepy. But then she says she woke up and they had like the sex of their like the best sex they've ever had, right? So it can be sexy. It can be something integrated, or it can be like, hold on, while I go get ready. We get ready, we clean, people might be doing their nails. You might get your hair looking, people do things to get it might be part of that prep, excuse me while I slip into something more comfortable, right? And there you go. You do your little steam session, Then you put on your little, your little nightie, put on your little cuteness, whatever it is, it can be part of that prep,
Yeah, I would say Kelly too. I've also had clients try incorporating their partners in doing the massage or like nipple stimulation while they were steaming, or even them do clitoral stimulation while they were steaming. And it really it added like almost like a kinky play to their sex lives. And that was like, I find one of the easiest ways in which the partners were like, oh, you want me to get the steam ready for you? Like, okay, yeah, let me get it ready for you. Let me go get your herbs. Let me go get your pot. I'll get it. Let's go, babe. Let's go. Oh, you want to do your steam? Okay, yeah. And they were down for it. Their partner was like, okay, let's go. So,
Joy's dead. We're Joy's dead. She's like, okay, I'm leaving.
like, that's not gonna happen with me, but
We never went there before, everybody. So this is the first time you guys are getting us going into these details. But yeah, steam is sexy. It can be very sexy. Okay. Now, personally, I will say I actually like to do it by myself. I like it dark. I like it, just absolutely like my Korean sauna experience. I'm like, never again. I like doing this by myself. Like I've certified like 1,000 steam practitioners all over the world, and they're over here on Instagram doing it, showing it, steaming their vaginas on the World Wide Web, you know what I mean, on the gram, you'll never see me do that. I'm very, very private about it. But I did have an experience. It was like my man's like birthday, and I was not in the mood. But I was like, all right, let me just do this steam session. I came out of there like, where you at? Let's do this, right? You know, it can really get you into the mood. Okay. All right, moving on. Do it before sex. That's all. That's the point. Do it before sex. For people who have had trauma, oh my gosh, you know, think about what the therapist was telling them and that the doctor was telling, you know, people that you may never be able to enjoy sex. You've solved the issue, right? So as you know, I know a lot of people here are professionals, you know, that work specifically with a population of people who've gone through trauma. It's really important for us to say it. Somebody, I asked and I didn't get any good advice. You know, I didn't even get a hint. I didn't even get any point in the right direction. So whether, even if you are never going to try this yourself, just remember it's important. You heard it for a reason, because that does really mess up people's lives. You know, again, my whole first marriage may have failed because of it, right? Like, you know, you mess with people's lives when they can't experience pleasure. And how can we really say somebody's fully recovered if they are not able to ever experience, if they're not able to experience pleasure, right? Okay. um Now, for the other things, heavy bleeding, painful periods, infections, and then the fertility issues that can happen after that. I'm going to explain what happens. So sometimes people know, you know, and with the infections, I most commonly see it when people are currently in a relationship that is problematic. So when you're thinking about people who, you know, are in a domestic violent, you know, relationship, you're going to see infections. You're going to see more infections. Like, trust me, if you're asking about those cycles, you will see those infections. Now, this doesn't mean everybody who has an infection, an infection is, you know, in a you know, relationship with domestic violence, but you'll see a high rate of it. And it's because of, I think, that close proximity. And what happens is something's eating the person up inside, and they have to be quiet about it or whatever it is. And so that suppression actually causes heat in the genitalia, where, you know, they have a sexual relationship with that person. And so that is why you end up with those infections, because they have to suppress, you know, sometimes their emotions or their voice or whatever it might be. And that suppression is what causes those infections in the body. That's what your body is showing. And I was reading in one of the old Chinese books, and they said specifically, you know, they don't have a disconnect between physical and emotional. It's all the same. And so they were saying it's resentment is the emotion that causes infections. Resentment, you know. So, you know, when we think about that, you know, that's not my area. Again, I'm not a therapist, but I did find that to be interesting. I was like, okay, I can kind of see that, you know. So you'll see also when people are going through divorces, they'll have more infections. They have like a lot of resentment, you know, about, you know, what might be going on. So anyhow, so infections is something, and a lot of times people know when their infection started. It's like a certain relationship, or, you know, ever since. Infections is a common one you'll see with childhood molestation, specifically, that has been covered up, hasn't been talked about, hasn't been addressed. You'll see the infection pattern there. Um, yeah, I found a high correlation between, you know, that childhood molestation and the infections. You know, specifically, a lot of people, you know, because I do talk about sexual assault. I mean, 1 in 3, 1 in 2. I mean, you know, that means that we need to talk about it. Like, it's all of our, you know, almost all of our experience, you know, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to the best of us, you know, who remember all of that. But like, this is a real, you know, and so when I'm looking at people's menstrual cycles, I'm learning about all kinds of stuff that they've never told anybody, you know. And so these infections and some of these stories, you know, have come out, and, you know, it's specifically the ones where they've never told anybody, you know, where you see these infections. They can't hide. You can't hide, you know. In the menstrual cycle, you see it. So that's where you see that. Now, when it comes to addressing infections, I do recommend working with a STEAM practitioner, you know. Just like if you got fibroids, you go to the doctor. You know, like if you've got like a sports injury, you go to the physical therapist. Like, you know, if you have hip replacement, again, you go to the physical therapist. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are people who know on a high level how to use the herbs, and I train them, you know. I train them. I've been looking at menstrual cycles and steaming and herb formulas now for, for 8 years. And there's some things you got to learn. You got to learn about different menstrual cycle patterns. And so, like, for example, I'll just give you guys the example because a lot of times people are like, I'm just gonna use my own herbs. Even a lot of people, about herbs. That doesn't mean you know about menstrual cycles and how those herbs are going to impact the menstrual cycle when somebody steams. And I'll tell you what we're trying to avoid. What we're trying to avoid is that steaming can cause outbreaks, like a herpes outbreak, if you do it in the wrong way and you use the wrong herbs. Steaming can cause the onset of bleeding if you steam with the wrong herbs or for the wrong amount of time. So those are some of the things that can happen. But with infections in general, I'm going to want somebody to steam for 1 to 2 months, as often, with the right setup, maybe only 10 minutes. They can't steam for too long is the trick, and with the right herbs and in the right way in order to clear that infection. And the best way to do that is to work with a steam practitioner. Most steam practitioners do virtual consultations, and it usually costs around $100, and that's what you can do it once and get that steam plan and those herbs and that setup, and then you go about your business. But I do
Kelly,
recommend.
we have a question if this is a good time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paula. I've unmuted you.
Okay, cool. I just remuted myself, but I also sent my question to the to someone. I guess that was you, Joy. But I was gonna ask if you were going to include PCOS in your presentation today, or if you would please.
Oh yeah, sure. I can talk about PCOS.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so that's polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I'm about to talk about stagnation. So we'll get into that. So anyway, so do that one session, do that one virtual consultation with a steam therapist, and then you'll be good. You'll have your steam plan to address those infections. Okay, so now we get to stagnation and cramps. Okay, so cramps are, actually what happens when the uterus hasn't cleared everything out. And then another thing that happens with stagnation is polycystic ovarian syndrome, okay? Because things are out of balance, the hormones are out of balance, the uterus starts doing stuff that is, I guess, unexpected, and it creates all these little cysts on the ovaries, and those can be painful. Those cause more hormonal imbalance. Those can cause missing periods. Okay, so but I do put it into the stagnation when you see that increase in circulation and that cycle. A lot of times, a lot of the symptoms that go along with polycystic ovarian syndrome will start to subside. So when it comes to stagnation, the same thing with stagnation. So your signs of it are brown blood, black blood, clots, and so PCOS will always have those that are going along with it as well. Then what you want to do is you want to steam, especially before and after your period. Okay, so you steam before and you loosen up all that old blood, all that bad blood. Okay, and then when you have your period, you never steam during the period because you don't want it to like speed the blood up or just whatever. You don't steam during your active bleeding. You want to steam beforehand, and then all that stuff can come out. You'll see a bigger cleanse. With the stagnation as it relates to assault is sometimes people will have like deathly cramps. They're passing out, and they have all these painful periods, and again it goes back to an incident. So it's not always the case, but a lot of times people are like, yeah, my cramps started. They'll know when they started because we kind of know our cycles, right? So it's like, yeah, things were different after that happens, right? You kind of will remember. And it's interesting, you can actually look at your whole menstrual cycle history and then be able to like, it's like it captures your history, the history of your health and what might have been going on. So the more I learn, for example, to read periods, the more I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense why that period went missing when I was 16, and oh, that makes sense why that, like you can actually go back and look, or why I had that one period that I passed out. Now I understand why. Do you know what I mean? Like you can go back and look at, what was going on. A lot of times we just think of it as just a random separate thing. So anyways, stagnation, including PCOS. Yeah, Raquel.
Well, I was just gonna say to what you're talking about and being able to like look and understand, I think the language of your body and what it's doing, right? When you learn how to read a menstrual cycle, that's what you start to be able to do. Like for me, or for this, like whenever I get stressed out, my cycle goes away. Or when I, don't set a boundary for like, oh, I'm not eating every time that I should be, I'm anemic all of a sudden. And your blood is going to tell you that. And over time, you'll be able to understand how to read the language of your own uterus and your blood. And this with the things that Kelly's talking about. When we have PCOS or stagnation or this, I always definitely recommend at least your first time, having a consult with somebody, because it's someone who knows the language and can be like, hey, when you have this tendency that what was going on here, you have this tendency that you were in this relationship. Oh, okay, you had this infection. This happened. Oh, this is that. And we're talking about these things very independently right now, like, oh, someone who just has infections, oh, someone who just has stagnated blood. And Kelly has so much information on Steamy Chick if you're dealing with like one issue and how to like move forward with that. But I don't know if this is true for you, Kelly, too, but if you'll see this where, you know, sometimes, especially when there's layers of trauma or layers of sexual assault, it's like they have infection and they have this and they have stagnated blood and they have, like, so it starts to layer upon itself, and really finding the support of, a practitioner to start to help you decipher the language of what's going on with your blood, is important, Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, sadly that's true. It's a lot of times it's all piled up. Yeah, like that poor girl who had the scar tissue. She also had infections and she also had really bad stagnation. And it was like, whew, brother, where are we gonna start? You know? Yeah, so this stagnation, when you think about it, why this relates to trauma, it's old blood, it's bad blood that hasn't been released, right? It doesn't need to be there anymore. It's old, it hasn't shed. That's a word that Raquel uses that I like. It hasn't shed. So if somebody has gone through a traumatic event, and then they're having cycle after cycle, and that blood isn't clearing out, it's because they haven't shed, the blood from that cycle, from when that incident occurred. If you don't shed that blood, your uterus can't return to its health. It can't return to its pattern. It can't return to its hormonal cycle. In order for your wellness, right? The ovaries might, start firing off. And this also impacts fertility. So a lot of times I see, this trio. You've got stagnation, so old blood, and that can result in PCOS as well, right? And what does this cause? Fertility issues. Sorry, what I was going to say is that painful sex usually goes along with that. So you got this old blood, painful sex. How are you going to be able to get pregnant when your uterus has all of this old blood in it? That's you gotta the sperm and the egg have to meet at the right time, and then they implant in the uterine wall. If that uterine wall is has that old blood on it, that interrupts fertility. And so, and then if you don't like having sex, like how are you going to get, what I mean? Like that's also problematic, right? So, so this is where you see, somebody's way past whatever happened to them, whatever, even all the best scenarios, and maybe dude is in jail and whatever, but it still is affecting people's lives unless we can get through some of these physiological effects, of it, right? So so that's why you end up seeing that stagnation there.
Yeah.
And so shedding that helps. Is that what you were gonna get into, Rika? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
well, and just wanted to reiterate, like you're saying, you get into these patterns of like, okay, this person may be way from the actual first point of trauma, but it's that first point of trauma that also imprints you and connects you, right? If we're looking at infertility or pleasure, like pain during sex, right? That point of trauma cuts you off to some extent from your capacity to create and from your capacity to experience pleasure. So then from that point is where it then ripples out and you're getting all these physical things that, need to be addressed. So it's like we ripple it back so that we can bring everything back into alignment, and the steaming then it almost kind of like works from the backward in too. You may be like, oh, I'm starting to like physically heal from this pain during sex. And now I feel like, hey, I have I deserve pleasure. I deserve to have what I want in my life. And it starts to kind of like work on the emotionality. It starts to work on your capacity to be able to like take care of yourself and tend to yourself and rest, which I know Kelly's going to get into in a little bit, and also like set the boundaries that you need to like, keep going. We're multidimensional. This is a multidimensional, like there's different aspects and layers to the healing that the steaming is doing. I just wanted to, yeah.
So if there are stagnation issues, you're going to steam before and after the period. And you can try doing it yourself at home. Do maybe 3 steam sessions in a row the week before your period and 3 after. But for more complicated issues where PCOS is there, endometriosis is also something that is like really bad stagnation now, and fibroids. And specifically when you're getting to endometriosis and fibroids, people are losing their uteruses over these, right? Because doctors don't have any solutions to get rid of that pain. They remove the uterus as their solution to get out of pain if painkillers aren't working, and a lot of times they don't with those things, and especially when they have an emotional or energetic actual foundation to them, right? And so I wanted to just explain pain. The pain that happens, can be the pain of having something fixed there in the uterus. It can also be pain that happens because the uterus is heavier than it's supposed to. So it's pulling, the uterus is connected with ligaments to the back and to other, parts of the hips. And so when the uterus is heavier and has stuff in it that it's not supposed to be in there all month long, a lot of times that can cause the rest of the body to feel that pain as well. And then the last thing about that is that the uterus itself is brilliant. It's a brilliant organ, and it's a smart organ, and it knows what to do. The uterus is like, oh, something's in here. I can contract to push it out. And that's what we call cramps. The uterus is contracting to push something out that shouldn't be there. So if you have a healthy period, if you have a healthy menstrual cycle, which is 4 days of fresh red blood, you won't see any cramping. You won't feel that pain. That's what a healthy period is supposed to look like. 4 days of fresh red blood. Okay. If there are clots in there, if there's brown blood, sometimes people explain like black goo comes out. It looks like tar. Sometimes they have blood chips that are in there. There's all kinds of things that can be in there. Fibroids can come out through the uterus as well. They're kind of like big globs of, looks like mucus. All of that stuff, it can be in there. Well, that's why the uterus starts to contract to try to get it out. And so that's what that pain, can be. So you see somebody, curled over in pain, that's that uterus. And so to talk about stagnation a little bit more, why is the uterus having such a hard time? So stagnation itself causes pain. From a traditional Chinese medicine point of view, like acupuncture, I love acupuncture. All pain anywhere in the body, they're like, well, there's stagnation there. And so what you do to help with stagnation is you introduce warmth, right? So now if somebody hasn't steamed, and they haven't introduced that warmth and they're not doing this, well, when they're on their period and they're doubled over in pain, you can still put warmth on the body. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody here has seen somebody hug a pillow or use a hot water bottle or have tea during the period, because that is another thing that's universal. Anywhere in the world, whether you guys are, whether you're African, Native, Polynesian, anywhere in the world, people have remedies, and all of the remedies include warmth. Soup, anybody? Hot bowl of chicken soup, right? Like all of the remedies we have for the menstrual cycle are introducing heat into the body in one way or another. And so that helps, again, the uterus to be able to clear out that old blood. But one of the things that we are doing sometimes that's working against it is cold. I don't even want to say it, because every time I say it, it makes me want to eat it. Ice cream. You know, ice cream used to be like, from my household, that's what you do when you're on your period, you know? And yes, I had very stagnant periods my entire life, right? Until I learned better. I was gonna say ice cream, and then plugging up products that plug it up. Tampons. You're actually restricting the flow. If you're trying to let it flow out, there's holes. You know, the cervix, the uterus has opened up now to let all of this shed, and you're plugging it up. You know, so it's like that is one of the things that's causing so much stagnation. So it's really important also to learn about that period care when it comes to stagnation. But before I go into period care, I do want to say, especially for these more advanced, you know, stagnation issues, go ahead and you want to get that at least one virtual consultation with a steam therapist. They'll give you the right herbs. We got, I mean, so far I've talked about steaming with salt and like with a tea bag or you know, something you have in your spice cabinet, but we got herbs, y'all. We make formulas, you know, we got really great herbs and they smell amazing, you know. This is my disinfecting herb blend. And if you work with herbs, take my class. You know, figure out how I'm formulating these herbs. You know, create your formulas as well. You know, it's not, you know, but you got to figure out what blend is for you. I tried to keep. I was like, I need to be able to create one formula that works for everybody. I can't. I can't create one formula, but the minimum is 4. I have 4 formulas. So once you figure out which formula is your one, then you can learn how to do that. You know, and you can work with, you know, with your own herbs, but you just got to understand what properties your cycle needs. So people who, like, you know, bleed too much, they need herbs with properties that stop or slow down bleeding. People who don't bleed enough or have missing periods, they need herbs that start bleeding, you know, and help to clean out the, you know, so, you know, you just got to figure out what properties you need. Right. um so but everybody, I mean, I hope it's Friday night. You know, Friday night is a steam night, everybody. It's a steam night. So, you know, I hope everybody will just go home, and I showed you guys how to do it. You just get a pot, you know. And we talked about this last time, Joyce, says people are so freaked out sometimes. They're like, okay, you use a pot. Okay, maybe get a little pot that you dedicate to your steam practice. Okay, get a pot you dedicate to your steam practice. I personally don't mix my steam pot back into my kitchen. I think Raquel probably does, because Raquel is just, she loves, you know, no, she doesn't. You know, you just get a pot that's dedicated to it. Okay, so I found a pot I used to use in Escondido. Actually, I went to the thrift shop and I found this cute little clay pot, this Chinese clay pot, and that was my steam pot for years until I accidentally broke it. But but you know, you get a pot dedicated to it, you know, and that's your steam pot. So anyways, go ahead and do it the way that I showed you, you know, and that just gets you started, right? And then you get your appointment, right? If you're talking about, you know, PCOS and you're talking about some of these things, get a consultation about it. Like my poor steam practitioners, they have to study, they have to take exams, and I don't just let everybody pass. Like, you got to know the menstrual cycles and know the herb properties, or else you don't pass my exam, you know. So when you come to Steamy Chick and you're dealing with any of the Steamy Chick practitioners, you got people who really had to study, you know, to learn all of this stuff. Now, that said, you know, I do believe it should be used as first aid and everybody should be able to steam all the time. But you know, it's really great at least one time to get that consultation, and that way you know what you're doing, and you can get the good herbs, you know. Get the real deal. So okay, so then the last thing I was going to say was fertility issues, but fertility issues was related to that stagnation. You know, oh no, I didn't talk about heavy periods. Okay, so heavy periods and heavy bleeding can sometimes happen, and ongoing bleeding are sometimes things that happen as a response to trauma. But it's not the trauma that's causing it. It's the uterus. It's an imbalance called uterine fatigue. The uterus gets tired. And when the uterus is tired and exhausted, the uterus actually has a blood vessel that called the uterine artery, I believe, that goes right from the heart to the uterus. And it's closed. At the end, there's, I guess they call it capillaries. Raquel knows this better. I learned this from Raquel's anatomy class. So it's like this artery is closed, and then when the hormones send the signal, it opens. It has the cycle, you know, the period cleanse, and then it closes again. And that blood going through is actually, it's the cleansing agent. It's the flusher. It flushes, you know, the old lining out, and then the uterus, like, okay, everything's good, close again. And it's always usually supposed to be closed. But guess what? If you're really tired It'd be like your uterus is like so tired. What happens when you're tired? You let go, right? You can't hold it, right? And so your body actually just actually lets go of blood. Your arteries are literally so exhausted that they can't hold closed. And so that's what uterine fatigue is, and you end up with bleeding. It can be spotting. If it's just like a little bit slips out, that's looks like spotting. Okay, and we're talking about fresh spotting, not that old. So you get that little bit of fresh spotting, and the more they open, the more it is. And if they really open, that's when you have that, really heavy bleeding. And so you can have any variation of any of this, but it's all because of fatigue. Okay, so there's a couple things about fatigue. You have to make sure that you get the right herbs when you're steaming. Number two, you cannot steam while you're bleeding, so you have to figure out how to get like kind of like what's triggering the bleeding, and there's different things that trigger it. But of course, sexual assault is like it can be a huge trigger for it. but a lot of times people will have a pattern of short menstrual cycles that come every 3 weeks instead of every 4 weeks, and that's kind of one of those keys that somebody has that fatigue, because the uterus can't hold closed for 4 weeks, so it actually comes early, and that throws off all the hormones. It's not supposed to be coming early like that. There's an actual pattern that's connected to the moon. It's supposed to take about 4 weeks. So so we want to get that period to stop coming early, number one, because basically you want to replenish the uterus. You want to give the uterus the energy it needs to be able to hold on for 4 weeks, or to be able to stop letting go of this blood, when it's not supposed to. And then the period rest is vital. Every night you maybe plug in your cell phone, nighttime, that's your time for your cell phone to fill its battery. Well, our menstrual cycle, our period, that's the time for us to fill up the battery of our uterus, to energize our uterus, to give it that energy. And it's not energy. What happens with the cell phone? If you're using it while it's charging, it takes longer to charge, right? Or it may not charge all the way. You don't use it, you just leave it alone, turn it off, and you plug it in, and that's what fills up the battery. It's the same with the uterus. You actually have to rest during the menstrual cycle. Okay, and that's what allows the uterus to replenish its energy. And so people with uterine fatigue are like, I kind of think of them as like the sweetest people in the world, because they are the people who tend to never rest. They tend to help others instead of themselves. And you know what? We need you guys. You guys are the angels in this world. You guys are the ones that are, stay late. You guys are the ones that come early and, remember that it was somebody's birthday and, bring decorations. Y'all are the best. But that's your time. When you have your period, that's your time. Because literally your uterus will bleed so much, your body will bleed so much that you can't. You have to stop and now go home. But you shouldn't, and you can't get your uterus that fatigued, because then now you have long periods that last 6 days, 7 days, 10 days. We don't need that. We need you guys back into the world, because y'all are the best. So you get those 4 days. That's your I've been calling it wombcation lately. That's your wombcation. You know what I mean? Like, and so yes, if you have to go to work, you go to work, you do the bare minimum, and then you go home. To me, I say, okay, if you go to work for 8 hours or even 10 hours, there's still, 14 to 16 other hours in the day that you should be resting. That's not the time to, go help somebody move, or, whatever the different things are that we do. That's just, you take all of the hours of the day that you can, and you rest, when you're not doing what the absolute, must is, the absolute obligations are. So that's your wombcation. And so there's a couple of things now. So for the people who are having the heavy bleeding, this helps to charge the uterus. And one of my little cousins, I was just like, she was visiting me, and I was just like, dude, just lay there. She has 7-day long heavy periods. I'm like, can you just lay there? It was like, hey, what you want? You want some soup? You want some tea? And I was like, here, let's get Netflix. Let's Netflix and chill. And she was just like, I've never done this before. This is fun. Like you can make it fun. This is your wombcation. Make it what you want it to be. So I had her Netflixing and chilling, and her period stopped after 3.5 days. She was at the end of her period, and she's like, I've never had a period this length my entire life. And she was like 16, like, and she got why don't we stop? Let's stop the pattern at that. Do you know what I mean? Like, how many more years was she gonna need to go of having 7-day long periods? We stopped it. 4 years into her periods, we stopped her having these long patterns, because she just learned to Netflix and chill during her period. That's what it looked like for her. And I think I even got her like playing Nintendo. I just needed her to chill. She kept wanting to do all this stuff. I said, look, you can if you want, but like, don't you want to play Nintendo? Like I was just doing anything I could to just get her to relax. And she did. And she was able to get through it. So the resting helps to stop that heavy bleeding, to slow down the bleeding just naturally. And then it helps to make sure that the period doesn't extend on for so long. And then the resting and taking that time to drink tea and eat soup and have porridge, or hot cereal or whatever those nourishing foods are. Um, or even just be chilling. What it does is it's going to, for the stagnation, it allows for the uterus to shed. It allows for that shedding of that old stagnation. Because like how Raquel said, usually people have more than one problem going on. So a lot of people have uterine fatigue and stagnation, right? Well, even if you just have the stagnation, just let it shed. Focus on nourishing yourself. So now coming and bringing it back around to the topic today, using, as we're like, one of the things that Raquel mentioned is that violence, towards somebody, when there's a transgression that happens, it is directly to the genitalia and the uterus. It's directly violence that's happened to that person's root. So what happens when you every month stop everything else and just focus on yourself, focus on your root, focus on that shedding, focusing on replenishing, replenishing the energy, nourishing yourself. What actually happens? You set these boundaries and you let people know, oh, I can't do that today, right? Today I'm on my vocation, but I'm going to help you out with that next week, right? Now you're learning how to prioritize yourself and how to nourish yourself and how to nurture yourself. And you know what happens? The people around you start to do it too. Like, my children start to do it, my Raquel, anytime I found out that she was on her cycle the other day when I was in LA a couple months ago, and like I was like, oh shoot, how can I get her some tea, some soup? I wanted to go and take her some soup, right? Like everybody, and whether you can or cannot. Oh, by the way, I didn't make it, Raquel, but I wanted to take you soup. I didn't make it. Okay, she lived way over on the other side. There was traffic. Okay, and I didn't make it. But the reality is what it creates, a community of people nourishing you and nurturing you. And how does that help you heal? It helps. It helps, right? Because people are saying you're important, your womb is important, your genitalia is important. Violence happens specifically to the genitalia and womb. And now love and nurturing is happening that you're making happen. You won't even let that not happen. And what Raquel mentioned the other day was like, it's almost like continued violence when you don't take the time to let that uterus rest, let that uterus shed, let that uterus regenerate. And the last thing coming up about that is that there's actually physiological reasons why you're supposed to rest during the uterus. So, like I explained, Raquel does this amazing anatomy class, and what she showed during this class is that the uterus is not just suspended in air. It's not just magically there. It's held up by ligaments that are holding it up, and those ligaments are attached to the back, it's attached to the hip, attached to other places. Okay, I forget the rest. Okay, but I got the point. Okay, these ligaments are holding the uterus in place. Now, during the period, the uterus is now, there's blood flowing to the uterus, and the uterus gets bigger and heavier. Okay. And that's why people see like, bloated. We all know you look a little different, your stomach sticks out during the period. Okay. That's because the uterus gets larger. Okay. And so then it goes back down to size when the menstruation is over. Okay. So you can like, wear your cute little things again or, whatever. Um, when you're on your feet, now gravity is now pulling this down. So you can hurt your ligaments. Okay. Those ligaments, you can end up with prolapse, which is when the uterus is falling down or bulging down. You can end up with back pain. That's because those ligaments are now your uterus is pulling on the ligaments that are connected to your back, to your spine. You can end up with hip pain. Again, the same thing, because now the uterus is pulling down and those ligaments are stretching. And so when you think about menstrual pain, sometimes people are having, that cramping that's happening, and they're doubled over. And sometimes they just have a general achiness. Well, that general achiness or that back pain or that hip pain, that's attached to actually being on your feet. So there's a physiological actual reason to be laid up, bed rest. I'm not talking about absolute bed rest, and people have different levels of fitness, but just try it. It feels really good. Try a wombcation. When you are at work, if you can be be sitting. If you can go home after work and just Netflix and chill, do that. Like, think of this wombcation and what that looks like. We love weekends. We love vacation. Well, this is another one, but it's physiologically necessary or else you will suffer. Okay? So so take it. You know what I mean? Like start to get it. Recipes and what you eat. Like I've got my own, like, food that I eat during this time. You prepare for it ahead of time. Like it's great. Like that is when I eat soup, and I love cream of wheat. But nobody in my house likes it. Like I don't know why my kids don't like it. But so it's like I don't make it all the time. But I make my cream of wheat with my brown sugar and my cinnamon. And I put ginger in there too. And like, that's when I get that's when I get what I want. I don't care about anybody. They can figure out food. You know what I mean? Like, and so it can be hard when you have little ones. So with my little ones, I used to put on a pot of rice at the beginning of the day in the rice cooker, and I used to hard boil some eggs, and then I'd put out like some little crackers, and I'd put it so that they can reach it, like at the bottom of the can. So they used to love when my period came, because that was the only time they had like all these little snacks that they could just reach and do on their own. So you figure it out. Different. Each one of us has our own life, so you got to figure out your own life. You got to figure out your own wombcation, but you got to take it, or else you will suffer, right? So there's a lot when it comes to providing services and helping somebody move past sexual assault. But let's also remember the physiological effects that they have, and that is just as important as some of the other things that need to happen, right? And that unless somebody moves past some of these things, that they may not be able to fully recover, or at least we could say they're fully recovered. But if they can't get pregnant now, like it still has that impact. And that being able to do these things, steam, and take care of yourself during your period. I don't want to say period, but period. You have power now. You have that power. Nobody can take power over your body when you're doing these things, and you're now, it's not only like trying to move past that, but you've changed it. You've changed that violence to now what's the opposite? Love, care, right? And so you have that power. We all have these tools within our own household, within our own life. One second. I'm giving a talk, but I'll be done in a moment. It's early here, so everybody was asleep when I started. Um, yeah, so you have that power. Nobody can take it from you. Nobody can. You know, it's up to you. And one of the things that came up before, what I do see is that, and you can even do this even within when you're still in a position of like in a bad relationship, right? Or in a cycle of domestic violence. And what I find is that when people shed the blood, when people charge the uterus, when people care for themselves and take that power over their own bodies and over their own, like, they're in charge of the care, right? Somebody else maybe took something, somebody else maybe implement, but now you have taken the control of the care now and the love, and like, and honestly, everybody else kind of falls into place. And I find a lot of times life falls into place too, you know as a result, as a direct result of that. So I had shared an example, a young woman who, a young girl, she was 19 and she was in a relationship with a guy that, and so, she started steaming, and she started, I told her, just don't see him during your period. Don't make plans to see him. Just, and she started doing it. And within a couple months, she had separated from him. Now, I don't know why, but in my mind, I see the correlation. I see this a lot, that once people start to take power over their own bodies and take control over at least that 4 days of the month, and maybe doing that steam session, maybe, once a week or whatever, it's like the rest of the life falls into place. And of course, there's going to be variations of that, and that's idealistic to think that would work in every situation. But it helps us all. It helps, even if somebody is in a cycle of domestic violence, at least they should be having better periods, right? Like, we got one less thing to worry about. And so, the last thing that I would leave everybody with is that you can steam on a weekly basis. And steaming on a weekly basis hits all 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. And a lot of times, only even just doing that can help to help with a lot of imbalances that are going on. So I definitely, if there are more advanced things, definitely get that consultation with a steam therapist. They do it virtually. You can go to steamychick.com and find my practitioners. And a lot of times people are like, there's none that are close to me. It doesn't matter. Like, you want to find your steam therapists. The technical term I use is para-steam hydrotherapists. They all do virtual consultations. I teach them to, because there's only a couple of them out there in the world, but they are highly trained and can, the results that they have are incredible. So you want to do a consultation with them for those advanced issues, but for everybody here, just start that weekly steaming, and then you'll understand how to use it for yourself and your own life, and then also for the people that you all serve. And I'm here. Me and Raquel are both here. We love the idea of, like, again, we, with our personal lives, would recommend it for the people around us when it comes to these situations of trauma. But we don't work at organizations, that are serving, like, a whole, community of people who are dealing with these issues. We're not in those shoes. And so that's why I'm so happy. Actually, I think one of my friends had recommended me to the Strong-Hearted Coalition, and they got to know me and have brought me in. But I'm so excited to support this work in any way possible. Also, so for anybody else, who I can help with resources, I do have online courses, so you can have somebody, you could either yourself train as a practitioner, or have somebody, in your in your group or in your community train as a practitioner. As Raquel said, think that every household should know how to do this as first aid, and every community and every neighborhood should have a steam practitioner, right? We got a massage therapist, we got somebody who does nails everywhere, we got somebody who cooks donuts everywhere. We need a steam practitioner everywhere too, All right, then. That's it.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments or anything that okay, Maria does. I'm unmuting you, Maria. You're up.
Hi, thank you for sharing that. That is like awesome information. I've never heard of this before. And it sounds very healing, because I'm sorry to say I don't have a uterus anymore, but if I would have known all these things at a younger age, I think it would have been very helpful. I am also a survivor of human trafficking and domestic violence. So, and having to have a hysterectomy, and then because of fibroids, and having that steaming option, I think I would have gone a different route, because as a woman, when you lose your uterus, it's kind of like you're losing a big part of yourself, puts you in this big emotional roller coaster, So if I had a different option, I would have gone that route. But this is amazing. This is like totally amazing. I'm actually going to share this with my daughters, because I think it's very helpful and very knowledgeable. I'm really flabbergasted. Yeah. So thank you for sharing all that. And Joy, you have her contact, right?
I do. I'll share it with you, Maria.
Okay, great. Thank you, ladies. It's awesome.
Can I, because I did the course, can I show her the website and can I show coworkers that? Is that cool? Yay. You know what, that was a lot of, fun isn't the right word, but it was the only time I enjoyed going to school. I resented when I went back to school to get my bachelor's degree because I went to school when I was in high school to socialize. It was fun for me. This was entertaining. It kept me like literally wanting to listen to every word. So
Farmers Navy Women's Coalition. It's
I
Maria.
think
I haven't
that,
helped you.
I think that everybody should get the opportunity to take this. I hope they do. So I'll share it with Maria and your contact information. I got a text with the question.
Okay, but
So
can I just say thank you for
yeah,
sharing that, Maria? And
sorry.
I know me and Raquel are both jumping. Which one of us gets to, tell you about? I'm gonna send it to you, Raquel, just to even just give you a little something, Um, yeah, a lot of people have lost their wombs. Doctors and the current, I think, gynecological system doesn't really give a lot of options. And so, but that's not all. That's not the end. Like, so Raquel, I'll let you, address that as well.
Yeah, you can absolutely still benefit from steaming, Maria, or anybody who has gone through a hysterectomy or partial hysterectomy. Your genitalia, you still have the ligaments that are there that had to be supported, that still can hold tension. You still have your vagus nerve in your genitals that can still help release tension when you steam in your body and your being. And you still have you will always have the energetic imprint of your uterus. It's just a more internalized thing. Then you're at a different phase. That's why I call it the wise womb phase, because that's like a special privilege in our society to, well, what I think should be, to honoring those that have gone through those transitions, who are approaching not bleeding anymore, or who have had hysterectomies. It's a different thing, but you can absolutely still benefit from steaming in a lot of ways, and still do what Kelly says, the 1 week, do it 1 week at a time, and or every new moon, or every full moon, once a month. You can really play with how you're still taking that wombcation for yourself.
And then Raquel, can you talk about how the hormones are still on a pattern though too?
Yeah, I mean, it really also depends on, like, was it a full hysterectomy? Was it a partial hysterectomy? Are the ovaries still present? Because if the ovaries are still present, there are still hormonal flushes that are still happening. If not, there are other, hormonal things with, like, the thyroid and stuff that are being at play. And so all of that depends on how your anatomy really still looks. And yeah, did you want to add, Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, so she can always explain the anatomy part. But yeah, I mean, I think what you said is true. It's like ultimately we're sharing this for, for the next generation, right? Like when I was raped, didn't know about steaming, right? I had to wait until 12 years before I found out about it. But for the next generation, anybody who gets raped, you know what I mean? Like I want them to be able to have it immediately as first aid, right? Or as a first response. And like how you said, you're going to be able to share it to your daughters or with your daughters so that they'll be able to use it, and know about that alternative to try. And what I tell people that are up for surgery, if the doctors are recommending surgery, so there's hysterectomies and then myomectomies when they do the fibroid removal. Either way, doctors, a lot of times that's sometimes the only tool or option that they have. So we can't counter what the doctors say, and it's somebody's own choice. But I say, okay, well, you can try steaming for 3 months and then see, about that, whether or not you want to continue steaming or go with that. So go ahead and, if you want to try this alternative, you can for a couple months, right? But mind you, that's one of my missions in life, is to save these uteruses, that are getting like, taken out. And then within my community, in the Black community, we have the highest rate of fibroids. Although I'm gonna say I never know, because it's always like a race between Black and Native, like who's dealing, that also may be just as high. But from what I've seen, like Black women have super high rate of fibroids, and then the highest rate of hysterectomies, and then aren't getting offered some of the other options for the hysterectomy. There's some other options, and then Black women, and I know Native women aren't getting offered some of the other options for it, right? Because we deal with more, right? Like, so we got what all women are dealing with, and then we're dealing with more because we're dealing with, overcoming the systematic, racism, and oppression that we've gone through for hundreds of years now. So, anyways, all that said, yeah, like, you still are, women are tied to the cycle of the moon. So our menstrual cycle trip out is the exact same days as how long it takes for a lunar cycle. As long as it takes for a moon to go around to the earth, takes 28 or 29 days, sometimes 30. Well, that's exactly how long menstrual cycles are. 28, 29, or 30 days. A healthy cycle. That's how long it is. That's just nature. I mean, natives, people who understand, like, indigenous knowledge and spiritual, will be able to explain it better. Raquel would be able to explain it better. I'm just going to say, look, who knows why, but we're tied to the moon, and our hormones are also following that. And we have hormones from the brain as well, as the uterus. So even after you have had a hysterectomy, those hormones are still following that same moon cycle, and will, the whole rest of the life. And so even for non-menstruators who periods are just missing for whatever reason, or who may be postpartum, or who may be before you've gotten the cycle yet, for the girls, their bodies are still, and hormones are still following that cycle. And it's that moon cycle. It's that 28 to 29 day cycle that we're basically always on, because as long as we have this moon, traveling around this earth, we're on that cycle. And so what I like to recommend is steaming at the new moon, the first quarter moon, the full moon, and then the third quarter moon. Steam along with those phases of the moon. um, it's that reminder, and it's that tie to that cycle. And then one of the main one of the women who works at Steamy Chick, she herself went through a hysterectomy like 20 years ago, and she loves steaming and talks about the benefits of it, specifically post hysterectomy. And what she's found is that it helps with dryness. Sometimes there are weird or different discharges that happen that even doctors can't explain. It can be helpful with those. And then it can also help with the scar tissue that does exist now from that surgery, helping to soften it or make it more malleable. And then specifically, sometimes it can help with lubrication and sexual relations as a result of that as well. So actually, there's a whole group of the post hysterectomy steamy chicks that are within their circles, and within those circles sharing about it. So I'll just share what they've talked about the benefits are for them. So anyways, I'm so happy that you're here, Maria, and thank you for sharing what you shared. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes now that you do know about it.
Yeah. So the question that I have is from somebody that was on our Tuesday call. She couldn't come back on today, but I had talked to her previously because I like to babble about it, and it's not always coherent. So they're asking, because when you first presented it, and I have to say this or I get all flabbergasted, as you can tell. When you first talked about it, you talked about it sometimes men using it and women using it for like help with hemorrhoids and other things. She's asking, is that like a one-time thing, or is that like something like you would use with the cycle? You would do it more than once? Does that make sense?
What are we talking about for men?
Or women, whoever has that.
Hemorrhoids. So we're talking about hemorrhoids?
Mhm.
Okay, got it. Okay. Joy, you're so sweet. I know, like after a while, at first I used to be like, we're gonna do steaming. Like, and now I'm like, yeah, we're steaming our vaginas, everybody. Like,
I have two construction guys in the front room. I'm like,
Oh yeah, that's right. So okay, so for hemorrhoids, I would recommend tilting back. What you can do is if you guys have seen those squatty potties or if you got some cinder blocks, raise the legs when you're sitting on the chair or whatever you're doing. I think a chair is useful. So if you're sitting in a chair, if you raise your feet up, then it tilts you back and then the steam is directly hitting the rectum. And so I said rectum. Okay, so that's helpful for the hemorrhoids. Now, sometimes hemorrhoids are hot, like they're like red, or they're bleeding. And in those cases, just take it easy, maybe do 5 minutes. But some people, even without tilting back, some people just the steam itself helps with it. And then some people, you're going to want to tilt back. And some people can handle like 10 or 20 minutes, 30 minutes with it, and they love it, and it feels really good. And then others can only handle like 5 minutes because they're like hot. And ultimately she, again, get that consultation. Somebody can help guide her with it. And then is she down there near you, Joy?
ish, yeah.
Okay. There's a physical therapist who's one of my, she's certified steam practitioner in San Diego. And she's like, she herself dealt with that issue, especially postpartum, and uses steaming, and she recommends it for her clients. And then she also, in addition, she has, other exercises and things that can be helpful for that. So I'll also send you her contact because like,
Cool.
I like just steaming and seeing if it helps. I like that, and then you don't have to go see somebody. You don't got to spend more money. So she can do that too. Just steam and see if it helps. Just tilt back, and see what she can do. And then she's gonna want to use, like, if she can use white sage, like use the white sage for it. Like
Well, we
that'll
have that down here, so
pull it
that's
in. Get that skin to tighten up.
yeah.
So then she can just steam and see, and then if anything, she can actually, and she can go see that physical therapist. But she can also try it, like, if it helps, and it helps. If it helps it, then she wants to steam again weekly to prevent it from coming back.
Okay,
You
so
know.
it can be used as preventative.
Yeah.
for
So
future.
you want
That's
to get it resolved, and then you want to keep it, because people go to the bathroom every day, so it's like it can get,
Or they
it can
should.
get,
Yeah.
yeah, right, they should, yeah. So it can get, it can get problematic again. So she wants to do that weekly stuff.
Okay, and then I have two more.
All right, let's do it.
So this one, she's in my age group, and so she's starting to like see shifts and changes. She's about probably 5 or 6 years younger than me, so she's still in her 40s. If she's following your weekly plan to keep things going, what if it's like one of those months where it's like just a spot, not a full-blown cycle? Does she wait once she sees the spot until it's not there? And is there like a time frame for how long to wait?
I love the way you ask questions. Like I'm on the edge of my seat. What's she gonna
My
say?
hands tell the whole story.
Okay, yeah, like weekly steaming is great because if your cycle's now supposed to be going away, it'll help it go away. If it's supposed to come, it will help it come, right? Like, there's a phase out period where the cycle's, responding and the uterus is doing what it does. So yeah, like don't steam on fresh red blood. Okay, don't steam on fresh blood, because when you're steaming on fresh blood, you're now opening everything up in those arteries, and then you could end up with heavier bleeding that wasn't necessarily needed, right? But yeah,
Right.
just do that weekly steaming. So of course, if you spot on a day, then don't steam. Then you just, when your spotting is done, then you take it up, and that weekly steaming will help phase you, get you through this phase, with as least side effects, as few side effects as possible, hopefully, by just bringing that circulation to the uterus, so the uterus can do what it needs to do. And then if there is any stagnation or infections, like go ahead and get your steam practitioner plan, get your steam plan to get rid of that stuff, because it comes back like they call it karma. You kind of have a period karma that happens. Like if you've let stagnation last for a long time, it will be worse during the transitions, So you want to just get rid of that stagnation or get rid of the infection, whatever it is, and then you just steam weekly for the next, just you keep on. I don't know, it's just a way of life. You just do your weekly steam, But anyways, I think it will really help, throughout those transitions. Just you know, whatever's happening, don't even mind it. You're just watching it, let it do what it's doing, and then just avoid steaming if it's fresh. But I like it. I think I just want to say she was on it, that she understood, oh, okay, this is going to be helpful as the uterus is going through this transition. So that's cool.
Yeah. And she's only like, I'm texting her what you guys are saying while you're on, because she's not on the call. So,
Cool. Cool.
and then I have one last one that is texted to me, and this person was on our call on Wednesday. So a teenager, like a very young teenager, has given birth, and she's interested in steaming. And I know you've said that like your little ones will, like, not with full steam, but that they sit there and that you're showing them this. So she wants to make sure that this is okay for her young daughter. She's 15.
Oh yeah. She's good. Steam her up, give her all that love and that healing. She can do it, you know, based on, so, you know, once somebody's already, you know, have that cycle, once they've had that baby, you know, everything's the same. So 13 and earlier, or so let's say when somebody's period hasn't started and earlier, before they've gone through that menarche is the word for first period. So if somebody's pre-menarche, then, you know, you take certain considerations, because if you steam them in a certain way, it could start their period, and if you steam them in another way, it could get their period to go away. So you take special considerations. So she already has her cycle, and she's already got her little one, you know, good for her. And yes, steaming postpartum is like the most universal use of it, and that's why it's the midwives that still know about it, because kind of like in most places, all the other purposes, it's been forgotten, but the midwives still know about it, because you always want to get that postpartum steaming. Now, everybody can steam for at least 10 minutes safely, usually, as long as they're not contraindicated. If her bleeding has slowed down, then she can probably get started with that steaming. And for postpartum, it's recommended to do it for like 30 days straight. So you get every day, and you're getting that, you know, that lochia out. The lochia is the postpartum discharge. You're getting it out every day. And the one thing that's unique about it is that you will, like, she may still be, you know, bleeding or having clots come out or whatever, but she can still steam. Somebody who's cycling, I just said the exact opposite. It was like, don't ever steam if it's fresh. But postpartum is the one exception, and it's because the uterus is actually closed up, but what's coming out is just what's left in the uterus. And so if you can get that all out, especially as soon as possible after giving birth, then you know, then again, the person doesn't end up with that bad blood, right, that they hold on to for a long time. And what's really opportune about postpartum is that the uterus it takes a while for the uterus to close up. Takes it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you know, that cervix, it's still open. It had to open, you know what, to 10, 11, however it had to open for that baby to come out. It takes a second for it to close again. So you're like, I know for sure the steam gets into the vaginal canal, but when somebody's postpartum, it's for sure getting right into the uterus and pulling that stuff out. So yes, let's get it to our young mother, to our young mamacita. Let's get her that steaming, and you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
what
go
you
quick.
what's healing, the thing is, you want it to be in the immediate postpartum. So so you want to make sure that she hasn't, you know, that it is a different postpartum protocol if she's like past 6 months or so and has already started cycling again. But if she just had her baby, then everything that Kelly is saying applies, because what's healing is the placental site, right? Where we're bleeding from after a birth is the placental site, where the placenta was attached to the uterus, and you're reshedding, you're reformulating the tissues of the uterus, which actually takes 6 months to heal in the postpartum, you know. So if it's in the immediate postpartum, yeah, have her steaming for 30, 40 days consistently. And you can, you know, like Kelly said, if that's the only time where, if there's fresh red blood or if there's fresh discharge that's coming out like that, that's perfectly okay, you know. And if she's like worried about it, like, you know, probably have her get a hold of me and we
yeah,
can.
get in touch with Raquel. This is what she does. She's a midwife, you know. And she
Yeah,
was the first
yeah.
midwife who was willing to implement steaming and start using it for herself and then with her clients. A lot of the other midwives were like, you know, weren't on board yet, but now that they've seen the results, they are.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
So we have Maria with her hand up again. I unmuted you, Maria.
Oh, thank you. I have a question. Have you ever worked with patients who are in treatment for cancer, and is that advisable to steam? And when the cancer is hormone based, it's
Ooh.
not the BRCA gene; it is hormone based.
So I'm not an expert in cancer, and I'm not an expert in steaming for cancer. I am aware that in Korea, steaming is used as a treatment for cancer, not only as an alternative treatment to radiotherapy, but also in tandem with radiotherapy. And I have a study that I published. Oh, sorry. So I put out the study on my website where they use steaming with radiotherapy. So if you went to my FAQs and you type in radiotherapy, you would be able to find that study. And it was done in Korea. And what they did was there was a group of people who had cancer and were doing radiotherapy. And then there was a group of people who had cancer who did radiotherapy and steaming. And it wasn't just cancer, it was cancer and stage 4 HPV. So again, I'm not a specialist. So when you say the hormone-based one, but I'm not sure, I'm not read up on that. But the group that did radiotherapy and steaming was better off. They had a longer survival rate. They had, less recurrent, they were able to get rid of the cancer at a higher rate, like there was like all the indicators were better in this group. So, so based on what the Koreans know about steaming and cancer, I think that it can be, helpful, right? And then coincidentally, I was working with somebody because of infections and stagnation who was steaming, and I didn't even know that she had cancer. She didn't even mention that. But after the fact, she told me that her cancer went away. Like her cancer had gone away, and she thinks that it was because of the steaming, and she hadn't been doing and hadn't started her radiotherapy. So I was like, whoa, that's cool.
Wow, it's
So there are
amazing,
like
amazing.
maybe some little, but again, she hadn't talked to me about the cancer. Like this was something that I learned after the fact. But like it's my theory is just like get rid of stagnation, get rid of infections, because no matter what somebody's going through with the cancer, and whatever, no matter what treatments they're going to do, it's just going to be better if they don't have stagnation in their uterus and infections, right? So, my
Correct,
theory when
correct.
it comes to anything is like that, spray the Windex on it, like the Greek, granddad is just like, let's just don't forget your period. Don't forget your menstrual cycle. Make sure it's as healthy as possible. Then the rest of your body can be as healthy as possible. So, that's, and then Raquel, I'm sure has, it looks like she has, something to say too. But, like to make a claim that, it can help the cancer, I can't do that. The Koreans would know better. But what I do notice about the study was that they still were using radiotherapy. They were doing cancer and radiotherapy. Sorry, they were doing radiotherapy and steaming, and had better outcomes like that. So now, do they use it entirely preventatively? I think I mean from what I'm aware of, they do, but it depends on what stage the person is at, right? And then that was actually the first time I found it. We never talked about we don't talk about male steaming very much here, but the first time I did find it on a Korean website, it was saying to use it for colon cancer. So I am hopeful that that's something that can save our men. I think in the Native population, I think you guys also have a lot of men with that problem. In the Black community, we're losing our men due to that one, at high rates. And then another area where it's used is for prostate health. So in particular, men who can't, go to the bathroom or having a hard time, you do one steam session and it really opens up the flow. So it can be like, a first aid, even if somebody is going to do more. But I also believe that it can, it can be used, to replace, invasive treatments, or it might, be something somebody wants to try for a little while before, having like an operation, right? So those are, but I'm not a specialist in male steaming. I only worked with women clients when I was working actively with clients, and now I work training practitioners and certifying practitioners, but a lot of them have now started working with men. So I've been, hearing about how it's going, and it's going good, so.
Well, that's great. It wasn't the question so forth about the cancer. It was more about the hormones when you're taking hormone therapy. Because when you do that, you're all over the place. You're all over the place with your cycles. And so, and it's my daughter. So she's kind of all over the place with her cycles.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just want to share that information that you have to see if we can help her to balance that out some,
It's
because it kind of just gets her all over the place.
okay. Okay. Understood. Yeah. And I think that is kind of like a good approach as the menopausal approach, which is just like, or the perimenopausal approach is like maybe just steam weekly, because once you're introducing hormones, you know, we don't know what's, like there's something that those introduced hormones are doing that, is can be unpredictable or hard for us to measure. But I do believe again in those the 4 phases of the cycle. Maybe I would recommend maybe she's doing that weekly steaming, just to try to help the uterus do what it needs to do to process, those medical, hormones that are being introduced, as well as balance that out with, whatever's already in the body. So in a situation like that, I would really, want to see that weekly, to get those 4 phases. And who knows? Hopefully it would be able to help. Hopefully it would be able to. I'm
Great.
not exactly sure though. I haven't worked in a case like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hello
I can't
again.
hear you, Joy.
Sorry, I was asking Raquel if she had anything to add or if I can move on to the next question.
You can move on. I think I would have said exactly basically what Kelly said.
Okay, cool. So Paula has another question for y'all.
It's kind of a 3-part question, or maybe 4-part question. I hope that's okay. So the first part of that was, are there any massages or acupressure points that you recommend to assist um, I guess the process of detoxing or cleansing? And also, do you recommend them to be at certain points during that steaming treatment?
Yeah, you can definitely use, sovadas, again, it's like one of the, hands-on healing massage is one of the, most traditional forms of massage that there exists. So you can abdominal massage, uterine massage, sovadas, absolutely can support the uterus in the cleanse. And again, it does depend on what's going on. If somebody maybe has an active infection, you probably wouldn't be doing a massage. Or I wouldn't depending on where maybe a fibroid or a cysts were, you have to take certain precautions when massaging the abdomen or massaging the uterus for those things. But it can absolutely be used in conjunction with steaming to support the body in detoxing and cleansing, and often support the body with like some of the ligamental tension that can occur, or even organ compression. I think somebody was like, we hope people are pooping, every day, but oftentimes like people aren't. There's a lot of constipation that's happening when there's irregularity that's happening within the cycle, and digestion issues. So having that massage can sometimes help even just the digestion issues to occur, so that there's not like compacted poop that's being, weighing on the uterus. And yes, there are acupressure points also that can be used, like on the feet and the ankles, to support the detoxing of the uterus, or the alignment and the flow of releasing cramps, and a whole technology of it. But Kelly, you have more to add?
I was just wondering, do you do massage, Paula? Like, are you familiar with abdominal massage?
I am familiar with it. I've seen it done in my community throughout my life, but I was wondering if you have a directory of sobadoras or if you do that through your consulting when you're reminding people that you're available through your website. I'm just wondering if that's like a referral system that you have set up there too. And if you have like any information on those acupressures, like which points that would be or something like more, I guess, directly available
Yeah.
through your website.
Yeah. Well, it gets beyond my area of expertise. I'm like the steam, I really focus on steaming. Raquel in particular is a steam, she's a steam practitioner and she also does the abdominal massage. So she's also, she does that as something that she offers. And so you'll find that with my STEAM practitioners, when you look at the directory, a lot of them are masseuses, a lot of them are womb healers, and know how to do, other things as well. So you can always, just check, your area and see who's around and what they do. And then there's a lot of acupuncturists who are getting certified with STEAM now too. But there's I call her the steamy chick acupuncturist. Like when I started, I used to always consult with Chris Gonzalez, who's an acupuncturist in order to be able to read the menstrual cycle better and make sure that I was getting people the right herbs. And so she also does virtual consultations. So she would be, the person that I would refer to if you wanted acupressure points, to support. And she teaches acupressure as well as the moxibustion. She likes giving people like moxibustion to do at home. But yeah, it's beyond my specific area of expertise. But some of my practitioners, are, some of them are acupuncturists, some of them are masseuses, So if you go to the directory, then anybody who has their other areas of specialization usually will integrate it, and be able to offer that in addition. Yeah.
Thank you. I had a couple of more, just wondering if there's a difference between the sitting right over the pot versus, I don't know if you've noticed, like I come from Central American community, so what they do there is to have it under the skirt. So like it kind of offers like a bit of a, like, I guess it'll kind of like hold the steam a bit, and the person will stand over it. But is there a difference in doing it that way versus sitting directly over it? Besides maybe like the heat, which I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
a
it
good
avoids when you're standing. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, so it's set up in all different kinds of ways, and so, you set it up how it makes sense. Like doing it under a skirt is great. That's a great way to keep the steam in. And then some people will put a whole blanket over, and
Mm.
that's fine as well. When you're doing the whole blanket and you're cloaking like that, you're putting a lot more heat in the body, which brings so much more healing to the whole rest of the body. Now you're getting up to the heart, you're getting all the extremities, the only thing to have caution with is to understand when somebody already has excess heat. So if somebody like has infections and hot flashes and night sweats and they're going to steam and you put them under a blanket, you could exacerbate their heat symptoms, and so that's something that I teach my practitioners to check for. But yeah, get that heat in there, whether it's under the skirt, whether it's under the blanket, it makes it better. I like having the introduction I like having the steam directly to the vaginal canal or to the genitalia. And I like the full body, right? Because we already know how beneficial the full body sauna and sweat is as well. So you can get both in one. And the setups, like from country to country, from setup to setup, it's different. I was looking at the way the Ethiopians do it the other day, or sorry, not Ethiopians, the Eritreans. It's just a country next to Ethiopia. Whoa, like the way that they do their steam, they dig a hole in the ground, and the way that they do it is really cool, But again, at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing, right? And so I don't want to be specific about how people do it, because to me it's like we all are doing what we're doing. We all know how to do it, and if somebody wants to, create like a, you know, do it in the earth versus if somebody's going to do it on a burner, that's going to vary just based on, what we have access to and the knowledge we have. And in general, I want people to, I can't teach the specific, cultural practices of it, but what I encourage is to learn what the cultural practices of it were for each one of us, right? And then to bring some of that stuff back, like the herbalists, the midwives, the traditional ones that have kept that, they want to see that again, So
My last question, I promise. Are there any herbs to definitely avoid using for vaginal steaming?
So I would say anything that's edible can be used for steaming. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that's safe to go into the body, can be used for steaming. When it comes to herbs, and when it comes to herbal medicine, you have to understand what herbs are safe versus what herbs are poisonous. So medicine and poison can a lot of times be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Poison can be used to chase disease out of the body. So you gotta understand your herbs, right? So
And you got to
any
understand
herbs.
the conditions too, you know.
Sorry?
What's that, Rika?
I was saying you have to understand the conditions too, like the conditions of what the language of what's going on, like the stagnation versus you're going to use a different herb to clear out stagnation versus to bring coolness to a body or to clear an infection.
Yeah, the
So
properties. Yeah.
it may not be that the herb itself is contradicted in general, but it may be contradicted for that person in what they're moving through.
Yeah, for sure. But as far as like, herbal medicine, you have herbs that you can drink all day long. You can drink dandelion tea all day long. You can have as many cups as you want. And then there's going to be like, oh, this person is sick and, you're going to give them, a little bit of this herb, right? And maybe if they get too much, it might cause them to, you have a reaction like vomiting or something. Those are the herbs that are, poison. Like honestly, they have strong like properties in them where the person should only be able to get them in certain doses, right? So anyways, you want to think of these herbs that you can have in any dose as the safe ones. And I just think of like the same as how you would take it orally or eating. Any of the herbs that you can have as much as you want, those are safe. Nettles, dandelion, like a lot of those. But then those herbs where it's like, oh, you can only get a certain dose, those are the ones that I would say not to use in the steaming, or to like, only use, once there's like, like a certain skill level, right? Because the steaming and the herbs possibly potentially do get into the bloodstream. And so the dose that somebody would take orally is the same dose that they would take in the steaming. So that's what I would say. In general, I just recommend people use all the safe ones, like you can have rosemary, you can have chamomile, you can have all those, you can have mint, and that's what's going to be safest to use for steaming. Um, there are some like the acupuncturists, for example, and believe that you actually get the herbs in a higher dose when you steam because they don't have to go through the digestion first.
Mm.
So we have seen that, like, again, working with the acupuncturist, sometimes there's people that were, they're taking her herbs and their digestion isn't very good. And so they're still not seeing the effect. And then they steam with those same herbs and then they have they have the effect of those herbs. And so anyways, I don't know if this is, I'm not saying there's any scientific studies, but we do believe that people are getting the herbs, maybe getting it in a much stronger dose, kind of like, you know, entering something right into the, like, what do they call it when you get a shot right into your blood veins. The steaming is a lot closer because the whole vaginal canal has the blood veins right there, and so it can integrate very easily, and it's very porous into the bloodstream. So just all of the same knowledge that with taking herbs orally you would want to use with the steaming, but in general, just like you can get it done with all of the safe ones.
So awesome. And are you both out in LA?
I am in LA.
Yeah, Raquel's in LA. I'm in Hawaii right now.
Oh, nice. I did
Yeah.
hear you mention that. Raquel and Joy has your contact information and it's for you to share with the participants here.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So
All
along
right.
the lines of those questions about the herbs being stronger, like than ingesting them, I want to say, sorry, I lost my balance. At one point, you guys had talked about people were using essential oils, and I think that was a no-no, correct?
Yeah, the essential oils are too strong. Like, sometimes
Before
people
you
come to me and they're like,
very
I
well
tried a
go,
steam
Kelly,
session.
I just want to, I have to bounce. I have another call at 12:30. So
Thank you,
I'm
Raquel. Sorry that we kept you guys over,
No,
but I'm
you're
so
amazing.
excited you have
I wish you could.
questions.
I love the questions. I wish I could stay. I actually have a Steam consult, so I need
Okay.
to support. I need to support somebody with their steaming protocol, and just wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you for all your questions. Keep asking questions. Joy has my contact info, and we're here. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be in this space with you all, and I'll see
Thank
you
you,
another time.
Raquel. Thank you.
Maybe next next conference will be in person. Who knows?
It will. And I'm inviting you.
Love you, girl.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and then so on steamychick.com, so she's one of my certified practitioners. So you just go find a practitioner and you can type in Raquel and you'll find her. And it has like her Instagram, her phone number, her email. Like you can stalk her, like you can get her in every different way,
Let's not encourage stalking.
Yeah, okay, so, you know what? Wrong audience.
Yeah. That's okay. I get told all the time, remember where you work, Joy.
Dude.
So
Yeah.
I do.
I forget
So
what we were talking about.
essential oils, and you
Oh, yeah,
answered.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes people come to me and they're like, I steamed and like it feels like really tight, or it feels like I stripped on my skin, or I feel really dry. And it happened a couple of times, but I found, until like the third or fourth time, and I was like, oh, they're steaming with essential. Every time they were steaming with essential oils. The essential oils are just too stripping. They just strip the oil of the skin. They're so strong, they're so powerful, but it's like,
Well, because
this is
that's
the
how
delicate
essential
part of the
oils are.
body.
Yeah, they're made by pulling the oils out of the plants. Because I've gone to those classes, so
And like I like it was like one, I think I don't know the exact measurement, like one drop of mint essential oil is like 25 pounds of mint, like well, we wouldn't
yeah,
use 25 pounds of mint steaming, it's just this is like
right.
overkill, So anyways, it's just so delicate. So they're too strong.
Okay.
They're too strong unless they were super, super diluted.
I just wanted to make sure that I remembered that correctly. But unless we have any more questions, I'm going to let you start your day because I know your family's been asking for you for about 45 minutes now. Are we? And it looks like we're good. I don't have any hands up or any requests, questions, so we're good.
Thank you
Thank you,
guys.
Kelly.
Thank you again, Joy. I always enjoy this and I look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, you have a good day. Bye, everybody.